The Galactic Alliance chamber was a marvel of engineering and diplomacy, its towering crystalline spires and shimmering energy fields representing the unity of over 1,000 star systems. Representatives of countless species filled the chamber, their forms as varied as the stars themselves, gelatinous beings that shifted colors with emotion, insected diplomats clicking their mandibles, and towering reptilian figures with scales that shimmered in the dim light. At the center of the room, seated in an unassuming but prominently placed chair, was Earth's ambassador, Captain Samantha Greaves. Her crisp uniform and confident posture exuded a calm determination that belied the storm brewing in the Alliance. Beside her stood Admiral Jonas Hale, his piercing blue eyes scanning the room with a quiet intensity. His presence was a calculated statement. Humanity had brought not just diplomacy but also military capability to this critical meeting. The tension in the room was palpable as Supreme Arbiter Krolin, an imposing amphibian-like being with translucent skin and a deep, resonant voice, addressed the assembly. The Krolak Dominion has issued its terms. Ceasefire negotiations have begun, and it is the recommendation of this council that all member states comply. Samantha leaned back in her chair, her fingers steepled in front of her. And what are these terms, Arbiter? She asked, her tone cool. Krolin's amphibious features shifted in discomfort. They demand territorial concessions, resource tributes, and the disarmament of several frontier colonies. Jonas Hale let out a sharp breath, his voice cutting through the murmurs. They want us to kneel. The Arbiter raised a webbed hand. Admiral, the Dominion's forces are vast. A prolonged war could lead to catastrophic losses for all parties involved. Humanity's fleet has performed admirably, but you must see reason. Samantha's eyes narrowed. Reason? Or fear? Because I see a council willing to appease an aggressor at the cost of its own integrity. The murmurs grew louder, the assembly clearly divided. Many species had suffered under the Krolak's relentless expansion, but few had dared to resist outright. Humanity's defiance was a beacon of hope for some and a dangerous gamble for others. Krolin's voice deepened. Ambassador Greaves, I urge you to reconsider. Humanity's actions have drawn the Dominion's wrath. A ceasefire is your best chance to preserve your people. Samantha rose to her feet, her voice calm but firm. Humanity did seek this war, Arbiter. But we're not about to abandon our allies or betray our principles to save ourselves. She turned to address the assembly, her voice carrying across the chamber. The Krolak thrive on fear. They conquer not because they're stronger, but because too many of us are too afraid to stand against them. Humanity won't make that mistake. If the Alliance wants to surrender, so be it. But don't expect us to follow. The chamber erupted in chaos, with delegates shouting over one another. Some supported Samantha's stance, while others decried humanity's recklessness. In the midst of the uproar, a towering Krolak representative, Scion Valrax, stepped forward. His massive frame and glowing amber eyes radiated menace. You dare defy the Dominion? Valrax hissed, his voice a low growl. Your species is but a speck in the galaxy, and you would challenge us? Jonas Hale stepped forward, his voice steady. We don't challenge you, Valrax. We defend what's ours. If that's a challenge to you, maybe you should rethink your place in the galaxy. The chamber fell silent as Valrax glared at Hale, his tail lashing behind him. You will regret those words. Samantha met his gaze without flinching. Perhaps. But if you think humanity will bow, you haven't been paying attention. As the meeting adjourned, Samantha and Jonas returned to their ship, the Resolute, a sleek and heavily armed battleship that had become a symbol of humanity's resilience. In the war room, holographic maps displayed the current state of the galaxy, with the Krolak Dominion's territory marked in menacing red. We're going to need more than speeches, Jonas said, his tone grim. The Dominion isn't just going to back off. Samantha nodded. Agreed. We need to show them that humanity isn't just stubborn, we're capable. The next few days were a blur of activity as Earth's forces mobilized. New ships were commissioned, soldiers were trained, and alliances were strengthened with species willing to stand against the Krolak. On the galactic frontier, skirmishes intensified, with humanity's fleet employing unconventional tactics to outmaneuver the Dominion's larger forces. Captain Lena Armitage of the Vanguard, one of Earth's most advanced stealth frigates, led a daring raid on a Kroluk supply convoy. Using cloaking technology and decoy drones, her crew crippled the convoy and delivered much-needed supplies to besieged Allied colonies. Stories of human ingenuity spread, inspiring both fear and admiration. But not all was victory. The Kroluk retaliated with brutal efficiency, targeting vulnerable colonies and unleashing biological weapons on unprepared worlds. Refugees flooded into human space, bringing tales of horror and despair. Samantha and Jonas knew they had to act fast to prevent further devastation. In a secret meeting aboard the Resolute, Jonas laid out a bold plan. "We take the fight to them. Hit their key systems, disrupt their supply lines, and make them rethink this war." Samantha raised a brow. "You want to provoke them even more?" Jonas smirked. "No. I want to show them why picking a fight with humanity was the biggest mistake they've ever made." As humanity prepared for its next move, the galaxy watched with bated breath. The Kroluk wanted submission, but humanity was just getting started. The galaxy trembled as the Kroluk Dominion mobilized its forces in response to humanity's defiance. Their fleets, massive and menacing, surged toward the contested systems, leaving destruction in their wake. Meanwhile, humanity, though outnumbered and outgunned, embraced its underdog status with a mix of determination and ingenuity. On Earth and across its colonies, every resource was directed toward the war effort. Admiral Jonas Hale stood in the command center of the Resolute, Earth's flagship, as reports streamed in from the front lines. Holographic displays showed the Dominion's forces advancing relentlessly, their crimson symbols consuming swathes of territory. "They're consolidating their fleets here," Lieutenant Maylin said, pointing to a cluster of systems near the Vesker Nebula. "It's a staging ground for a full-scale invasion." Hale frowned. "They're preparing to punch through our defenses and take Earth directly. We can't let that happen," Samantha Greaves said, joining them. The ambassador's voice was firm, though her features betrayed the weight of their situation. "If Earth falls, the rest of the galaxy will see us as a failed experiment, a species that dared to stand but couldn't hold." Hale nodded. "Then we take the fight to them before they're ready." The plan was audacious, bordering on reckless, a multi-pronged strike on the Vesker Nebula to disrupt the Dominion's buildup. The operation required precise coordination between Earth's fleet and its allies, a coalition of smaller species who had joined humanity in resisting the Kroluk. Among them were the Lithari, crystalline beings whose advanced shield technology had proven invaluable, and the Kora, insectoid warriors known for their tenacity in battle. Captain Lena Armitage and the stealth frigate Vanguard would spearhead the assault, infiltrating the nebula to gather intelligence and disrupt communications. Meanwhile, Admiral Hale would lead the main fleet in a direct assault on the Dominion's forward command station. The operation began under the cover of the nebula's swirling gases, which provided natural camouflage but also interfered with sensors. The Vanguard, cloaked and running silent, slipped into the heart of the Dominion's formation. On board, Captain Armitage and her crew worked with quiet precision. "We're picking up their command network," her tactical officer whispered. "Looks like they've got multiple redundancies. It won't be easy to take it down." Armitage smirked. "Nothing worth doing ever is. Let's show them what we're made of." The Vanguard deployed a series of specialized drones, each carrying EMP charges designed to disrupt the Dominion's advanced systems. The drones moved like shadows through the nebula, their silent approach undetected by the Kroluk. At the same time, the Resolute and its fleet surged into the outskirts of the nebula. Hale stood at the center of the bridge, his presence a steadying force amid the chaos. "Keep formations tight," he ordered. "They'll try to flank us once they realize what we're doing." The battle erupted as the fleet engaged the Dominion's picket lines. Earth's ships, smaller and more agile, darted between the massive Kroluk warships, striking with surgical precision. Railguns and missiles found their marks, while allied Lithari vessels projected shields that absorbed the brunt of the enemy's counterattacks. Inside the nebula, the Vanguard struck its first blow. The EMP drones detonated in sequence, plunging the Dominion's local network into chaos. Communications faltered, and coordination among their forces disintegrated. "This is it," Armitage said. "Begin Phase 2. The Vanguard launched its payload, a series of high-yield explosives targeted at the command station's infrastructure. The blast tore through the Dominion's supply lines, sending shockwaves through the nebula. Back on the Resolute, Hale received the signal from Armitage. "The station's vulnerable," Lynn reported. "Their forces are scattered, and their command network's down." Hale seized the moment. "All units press the attack. Target their remaining defenses and push them out of the nebula." The fleet surged forward, Earth's ships exploiting every weakness. The Krolak, unprepared for such a coordinated assault, began to falter. One by one, their warships succumbed to the onslaught, and the remnants of their forces retreated deeper into the nebula. As the dust settled, the Vesker Nebula stood as a testament to humanity's resilience and tactical brilliance. The Dominion's staging ground had been crippled, and their momentum stalled. But the cost was steep. Several Earth ships lay in ruins, their crews lost in the void. Among them was the Vanguard, which had sustained critical damage during its final strike. Captain Armitage and her crew were hailed as heroes, their sacrifice ensuring the mission's success. On board the Resolute, Hale and Samantha reviewed the aftermath. "We bought ourselves time," Hale said, his tone heavy. "But the Dominion won't take this lying down." Samantha nodded. "We need to keep the pressure on. If we let up now, they'll regroup and come back stronger." Hale's eyes hardened. "Then we don't let them regroup. The Krolak wanted war. Let's make them regret it." As humanity rallied from the victory at the Vesker Nebula, the galaxy watched in awe. Earth's defiance was no longer a gamble, it was a statement. But the Dominion, wounded but unbroken, was preparing for its next move. And humanity, determined and unyielding, was ready to meet it head-on. The victory at the Vesker Nebula marked a turning point in humanity's fight against the Krolak Dominion. For the first time, the galaxy had witnessed a decisive blow dealt to the seemingly invincible war machine. Yet, as Admiral Jonas Hale knew all too well, the Dominion's pride had been wounded, and their retaliation would be swift and brutal. In the war room aboard the Resolute, holographic maps displayed the Dominion's regrouping fleets. Their next move was unmistakable, an all-out assault on the Sol system, humanity's heart. Admiral Hale stood at the center of the room, surrounded by Earth's top strategists and allied representatives. "They're coming for Earth," Hale said, his voice calm but firm. "And they're bringing everything they've got." Lieutenant May Lin tapped on her console, bringing up the projections. "Their fleet outnumbers ours 5-1. Even with our allies, we can't hold them in a direct engagement." Samantha Greaves, Earth's ambassador, leaned forward. "Then we don't fight them head-on. We use what we have: ingenuity, strategy, and determination." The plan was born out of necessity and desperation. Earth's fleet would establish a defensive perimeter in the outer solar system, using Jupiter's massive gravity well and asteroid belts as natural barriers. Allied ships would reinforce key choke points, while Earth's most advanced weapon systems were deployed in orbit around the inner planets. But the heart of the plan was a trap. The Resolute and a small task force would lure the Krolak flagship, the Crimson Dread, into a carefully orchestrated ambush near the asteroid belt. There, Earth's fleet would deploy a series of experimental weapons designed to disable the Dominion's warships. As the Krolak fleet entered the Sol system, the tension was palpable. Hale stood on the bridge of the Resolute, watching the holographic display as enemy ships appeared on the scanners. The sheer size of the fleet was staggering. Dozens of massive warships flanked by smaller support vessels, their crimson hulls gleaming ominously. "Here we go," Hale muttered. "All ships maintain formation. Let them come to us." The Dominion's opening salvo was devastating. Plasma beams and missiles streaked across the void, targeting Earth's defensive platforms. But the humans and their allies were ready. Litari's shields absorbed much of the initial bombardment, while railguns and missile batteries retaliated with deadly precision. The battle raged across the outer system, the void lit by the explosions of ships and weapons. The Dominion pressed their advantage, their larger ships cutting through the asteroid belt with brute force. But Earth's fleet fought back with relentless ingenuity, using the terrain to their advantage. Small, agile frigates darted between the asteroids, striking at vulnerable points in the Dominion's formation. Stealth drones deployed cloaked mines that detonated in spectacular bursts, taking out entire squadrons. Meanwhile, Earth's heavy cruisers formed a defensive wall around the inner planets, holding the line against wave after wave of attackers. On the Resolute, Hale and Lynn monitored the unfolding battle. "The Crimson Dread is holding back," Lynn reported. "They're waiting for us to make a mistake. They'll get their chance soon enough," Hale said. "Prepare the task force. It's time to spring the trap." The Resolute and its escorts broke away from the main fleet, heading toward the asteroid belt. The move was calculated to appear like a retreat, baiting the Krolok flagship into pursuit. As the Crimson Dread and its escorts entered the asteroid belt, Earth's trap was sprung. Hidden among the asteroids were dozens of cloaked missile silos and railgun platforms, each targeting the Dominion's most vulnerable ships. The first volley hit with devastating precision. Explosions rippled through the Krolok formation as their escorts were torn apart. The Crimson Dread, though heavily shielded, was rocked by the assault. "Now's our chance," Hale said. "Focus fire on the flagship." The Resolute led the charge, its railguns firing relentlessly at the Crimson Dread. The Krolok flagship retaliated with a massive plasma beam, its energy scorching through the asteroid field. Earth's ships dodged and weaved, their smaller size and agility giving them an edge in the chaotic environment. But the Dominion was not without its tricks. Krolok fighters swarmed the task force, their numbers threatening to overwhelm the human ships. Hale's voice cut through the comms. "Deploy the second wave. Keep the pressure on." Earth's second wave consisted of experimental weapons designed to disrupt the Dominion's advanced technology. EMP torpedoes detonated across the battlefield, frying the Krolok's targeting systems and leaving their ships vulnerable. The Crimson Dread, now isolated and crippled, began to falter. Its shields flickered, and its massive plasma cannon went silent. Hale seized the opportunity. "All ships target the command bridge. Take it out!" In a final, desperate act, the Crimson Dread attempted to ram the Resolute, its engines blazing as it surged forward. But Earth's fleet was ready. Coordinated missile strikes hit the Krolok flagship's engines, forcing it to veer off course. The massive ship collided with a cluster of asteroids, its hull breaking apart in a fiery explosion. Cheers erupted across the fleet as the Dominion's flagship was destroyed. But Hale's expression remained serious. "It's not over yet. The rest of their fleet is still out there." Back on the main battlefield, the destruction of the Crimson Dread sent shockwaves through the Krolok fleet. Their morale shattered, and their formation crumbled. Earth's fleet and its allies pressed the advantage, driving the Dominion's forces into retreat. As the battle ended, Hale and his crew stood on the bridge of the Resolute, their exhaustion tempered by a sense of accomplishment. "We did it," Lynn said, her voice filled with relief. "For now," Hale replied. "But they'll be back. And we'll be ready." The victory at the asteroid belt was a defining moment in the war. Humanity had not only defended its home but had dealt a crippling blow to the Dominion's pride and power. Across the galaxy, species that once doubted Earth's resilience began to reconsider, their faith in humanity growing stronger. But the war was far from over, and the Krolok would not take their defeat lightly. As Earth's forces regrouped, Hale and Samantha prepared for the next stage of the conflict. Humanity had proven its strength, but the real challenge was yet to come. The destruction of the Crimson Dread sent shockwaves across the galaxy. For the first time, the Krolok Dominion, an empire built on fear and domination, had suffered a defeat that could not be ignored. Across Earth and its colonies, celebrations erupted, but the leadership knew the war was far from over. Admiral Jonas Hale stood in the war room of the Resolute, staring at the holographic map of the galaxy. The Krolok fleet was retreating, regrouping in their core systems. Reports from Allied intelligence confirmed what Hale suspected. The Dominion was preparing for a final, decisive strike. "They're wounded, but not broken," Hale said, addressing his officers and allies. "We've taken out their flagship, but their remaining fleets are still formidable." Ambassador Samantha Greaves joined him, her expression thoughtful. "They'll want revenge." The destruction of the Crimson Dread wasn't just a tactical loss, it was a blow to their pride. "We've challenged their dominance, and they'll throw everything they have to crush us." Hale nodded. "Then we need to hit them before they hit us." The plan was bold and audacious, a hallmark of humanity's approach to the war. Instead of waiting for the Krolak to regroup, Earth and its allies would launch a preemptive strike on the Dominion's core system, Karvek Prime. The target was not just military, it was symbolic. Karvek Prime was the heart of the Krolak Empire, home to their leadership and their largest shipyards. "This isn't just a battle," Samantha said during a strategy meeting. "This is about breaking their spirit. If we take Karvek Prime, we show the galaxy that the Dominion isn't invincible." The operation, codenamed Final Dawn, required the combined efforts of Earth's fleet and its allies. The Litari provided their advanced shielding technology, while the Nkora contributed their formidable ground forces. Even previously neutral species, inspired by humanity's defiance, offered resources and support. Earth's engineers worked tirelessly to prepare the fleet, upgrading ships with the latest technology and developing new weapons to counter the Krolak's formidable defenses. Among these was the Nova Lance, a prototype energy weapon capable of piercing even the strongest shields. As the fleet assembled, Hale addressed the crews from the command deck of the Resolute. His voice was steady, carrying the weight of the moment. "We stand on the brink of history. The Krolak have terrorized the galaxy for centuries, their power unchecked. But today, we say no more. Today, we fight not just for Earth, but for every species that dreams of freedom. The Krolak wanted war. Let's show them what that truly means." The fleet entered the Karvek system under the cover of a massive solar flare, a calculated risk that masked their approach from the Dominion's sensors. As the flare subsided, the Krolak defenses came into view, a sprawling network of orbital platforms, massive warships, and swarms of fighters. The battle began with a coordinated assault on the outer defenses. Earth's ships moved with precision, their railguns and missiles striking key targets, while Allied ships provided cover. The Litari shields absorbed the initial onslaught, allowing the fleet to push forward. In the chaos of the battle, the Resolute led a strike group toward the shipyards. The massive structures, bristling with weapons and surrounded by Krolak warships, were critical to the Dominion's war effort. "Target their command centers," Hale ordered. "Take out their coordination, and the rest will fall apart." The Nova Lance fired, its energy beams slicing through the largest shipyard. The explosion was blinding, debris scattering across the battlefield. The Dominion's forces, already stretched thin, began to falter. On the ground, Nkora warriors and human marines launched an assault on Karvek Prime's capital. The battle was fierce, with the Krolak defenders fighting to the last. But humanity's forces, bolstered by their allies, pushed through, capturing key strategic points and disabling the planetary defense grid. Ambassador Greaves, coordinating the ground assault from orbit, received an urgent message. "The Krolak High Council is requesting a ceasefire." Samantha's expression hardened. "Patch it through." The holographic image of Scion Valrax, the Dominion's representative, appeared. His once proud demeanor was replaced by desperation. "This conflict has gone far enough. We propose an immediate ceasefire and negotiations." Samantha leaned forward, her tone icy. "You propose a ceasefire now, after terrorizing the galaxy for centuries? After attacking our worlds and slaughtering our people?" Valrax faltered. "We underestimated humanity. Clearly, your species is more capable than we thought." Hale, standing beside her, spoke up. "Capable doesn't even begin to describe it. If you think we're stopping now, you're mistaken." The Dominion's forces crumbled as the combined fleet pressed its advantage. By the end of the day, Karvek Prime was under Allied control, its shipyards destroyed, and its leadership in disarray. The Krolak's reign of terror had ended. In the aftermath, the Galactic Alliance reconvened, this time with humanity at the forefront. Samantha addressed the assembly, her voice carrying the weight of victory and the promise of a better future. Today, we have shown that tyranny can be defeated. That even the strongest oppressors can fall. Humanity didn't fight this war for power or conquest. We fought for freedom, for ourselves and for every species that dares to dream of it. Together, we've proven that unity is stronger than fear. Back aboard the Resolute, Hale and Samantha stood on the observation deck, watching the stars. The war was over, but the galaxy's future was just beginning. Think they'll come back? Hale asked. Samantha smiled faintly. If they do, they'll know what to expect. Humanity had not only survived the war but had emerged as a symbol of resilience and hope. The galaxy would never be the same, and Earth's place among the stars was secured, earned through determination, ingenuity, and the unyielding spirit of its people.